So, title of the sermon is The Impending Crisis. The end is near English Church. Scripture reading Psalm 19 and verse 7 and 8. And if you have your own Bible, Psalm 19, 7 and 8, and I'm going to read on the screen, NIV. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. So, talking about law, how important it should be. Let me ask you a question. Let me begin with a question. Well, we are living end time. According to the Bible, since we just say that we are living in time of the end time, and according to the Bible and prophecy-wise, when the end time starts? Any guess? According to the Bible, are we living in the time of the end? Yeah, end time. Yeah. Yes. When did it start?
When Jesus ascended to heaven.
Well, I think I can. Yeah, that's right, Azuri. But according to the Bible, when it comes to Bible prophecy, I chose this Bible text, Daniel 8:14. Right? He said to me, it'll take 2,300 evenings and morning, then the sanctuary will be reconsecrated. What I'm trying to say is that after this Bible prophecy, there's no more Bible prophecy. This is the end. No more anything predicted. So, as we all learned, we believe that Jesus entered most holy place in heaven, heavenly sanctuary. So after that, anytime soon, he would come out. We don't know yet when, but Jesus would come back to this earth, and this is the end. So, Bible talks about many kind of symptoms and conditions of the end time, and this is one of which. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1 through 5, reading NIV here. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. End time. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy. See? When you read the newspapers and when you turn on the internet, the news agencies, and we can collect all the result of the sin, and we can definitely apply those conditions, and what has happened to us is we can compare with this Bible. Verse 3, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, have nothing to do with such people. Let me summarize what it says. The yellow fonts right here, lovers of themselves, right? And lovers of money, and lovers of pleasure. Most accident, most the news articles related to the crime, it's related to this. Lover of self, they're so selfish. Lover of money, all kinds of crimes related to the issue of money. And lovers of pleasure. They put more pleasure above God, and it's an idol. So all related, those three. This terribly happened in Japan. Okay, this gentleman, back then, 3 years ago, 77-year-old gentleman, whose name is Nozaki Gosuke, 77-year-old. He died. Guess what? Who is this lady next to him?
Wife.
You're right.
But I'm going to say wife.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Can you see the age difference between two? Can you see a little bit? Believe it or not, they are 55 years apart. And this gentleman happens to be the last wife. I don't know how many wives he went through, but 3 years ago, he was found dead in the morning in his house. I'm sorry to say this, naked. And there is no intruders from outside. Nothing, any hurt, any mark of, knives and gunshot. Nothing, just that. Turned out to be overdose of something, substitute. And so far, who was the killer? They didn't know. But finally, this lady, the last wife of this gentleman, whose name is Sudo Saki. Now he's only 25 years old. So back then, 22, believably, she got married, this man. And after 3 years, now the police, the authority, found, okay, this person is the person of interest. In other words, person of murder suspect. And she got caught finally. But I don't know how the story goes. It's still under investigation, so some news. But much likely, she killed her husband. Why? Because she couldn't wait until he died, right? Because of the money, all kinds of money issue. But sorry about this gentleman, because he's such a notorious person. Even he wrote a book, 2 books. He wrote books. This is his mentality, his philosophy, like this. Gishu, this is a place. Gishu no Don Juan. Do you know who Don Juan was? Yeah? It's a known 17th century Spanish, in Spain, Spanish playboy, right? He's a legendary person. I don't know if he's the real person, but I believe he's a legendary person. And he says, Gishu's Don Juan, this gentleman. And he says, okay, beautiful woman, Bijin, beautiful woman, 4,000 beautiful woman. He spent 30 ok yen, is Japanese, the currency unit, to buy 4,000 women. He spent, in a US dollar equivalent is $27 million. That's what? He spent $27 million to meet, in a good sense, to meet 4,000 women, ladies like this. So now he's, see, all related. Money issue, and the pleasure, and self-interests, all related like this. And sad. And this gentleman's philosophy is that he just earned money, made money only for pleasure. And he just spent out all the money he had. And finally, he just harvest what is sow, and what he had sown, and he's dead. So sad. But this is the phenomenon of the society of the time of the end. But what about the Bible? What does the Bible say about the time of the end? I'll give you two examples. The Bible text reference. And first one is Mark 13:8. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. They're fighting. And according to the great controversy, Satan is going to use war to destroy the people. It's a very useful and powerful weapon to get rid of all the people through wars. So war here, and there will be earthquakes in various places and famines. When the earthquakes happened, and it'll destroy the farming, and the earthquake is followed by the famine, like this, the sequence. And these are beginning of the birth pains. So this is the start, not the end, but this is the beginning. War, earthquakes, famine. And another Bible text, Luke. We'll come back to it. Luke 21:11, it says, there will be great earthquakes. It's repeating what the Mark says. Earthquakes and famines and pestilences. Can you see the sequence? Earthquakes, famines, and pestilences. So after the famine, they don't get well nourished. And then guess what? The pestilence, the disease, the contagious disease just occurred. This is a pattern: earthquake, famine, and pestilence in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. So we don't know what kind of great signs will appear, but it's kind of a doomsday and nobody knows what's going to happen. It's scary. Yeah, it's very scary. I'm going to quote from the Great Controversy, 1911 version. It says, Satan works through the elements also to garner his harvest of unprepared souls. He studies the secrets of the laboratories of nature, and he uses all his power to control the elements as far as God allows. Can you guess what happened to Job, right? God allowed in a certain boundary, and Satan, he couldn't kill Job, but all kinds of disastrous things happened and allowed to Job. And even when you see, we have the word that something like lightning, earthquakes, tsunami, and somebody called it, that's an act of God. Who said that? Act of God. And all blames goes to God. But right here, even Satan can mimic those ideas, and he exercised his power. Why? Because supposed to be all blames, make all blames go to God. So what a God. And he did this, and he destroyed this human, the human race and so on, and all blames goes to God. No, Satan just did it right here. And Satan works through the elements also to garner his, while appearing to the children of man as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease and disaster until popular cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Even now, he is at work in accidents and calamities by sea and by land and great conflagrations in fierce tornadoes and terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes. In every place and in 1,000 forms, Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. So he's busy doing something, and he just wanted to make it all blames go to God like this. This is dynamite. He imparts to the air of deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. This is what I've seen so far. Coronavirus, airborne disease. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. So I don't believe that coronavirus, this is the end, and coronavirus is soon come to the end. No, I don't believe that. Who knows? Another stronger contagious disease would happen to us. Because guess what? There are two theories. Coronavirus started from the lab, from one of the Chinese lab. And another theory is that it comes from nature. The bats. Blames are going to be bats like this. But guess what? Bats are all there, all the time, out there. This is not new. This is not new species. Bats are always there. And it started somehow. And who can say that coronavirus is the end of the contagious disease? There is no more contagious disease. I don't buy that. So destruction will be upon both man and beast, animals, they are suffered. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The haughty people do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Wow. So, Mrs. White put those words in order, and it is quite something that it is related to God's law, right? Because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. Quoting Isaiah 24 and verse 4 and 5 like this. So remember, all kinds of these natural disasters and unknown contagious diseases, it is all related to breaking God's law. Can you believe that? This is a situation in India these days. This is just instant crematorium on the field. When people died, and they just cremate. So horrible scene. Once, this place used to be a car parking space, but now it's an open area for cremation. In Delhi, India, it's a big city. About 20 million people live there. And it is said that every 4 minutes, one person died of coronavirus. Every 4 minutes, one person died. And it says Delhi's crematoriums say they are cremating more than 600 bodies daily, double the official figure. So the speed of death and compare the speed of cremation. The speed of death cannot, the speed of cremation cannot follow the speed of death. It's so fast. So when people died for the cremation and they just lined up, they got the ticket, the waiting ticket, and when their turn is up and they just hand over the ticket and cremation begins. But it takes time. Sorry to show you all these disastrous, but this is a reality. What
They
it
have
happened.
burned over 800 bodies here in the last 3 weeks in what used to be a car park. This in Delhi, a city of 20 million people, where the official death toll is 1 dead from COVID every 4 minutes. The Holy Family Hospital is among the best equipped, yet it has run out of ventilators with every space taken by those struggling to breathe. The patients are younger than last year's first wave, overwhelmed by new strains of the virus, and their families have been campaigning for days to have their relatives admitted.
It cannot be left to the citizens to run around to find a bed. They are dying on the way to the hospital because they are going from hospital to hospital trying to find a bed. That's no way to treat our citizens.
Amit Goel is 39 and battling to avoid becoming another statistic. His wife Manika is at his bedside, frantically ringing around in search of a ventilator. Her mother died without one this morning, and now the doctors say her husband has just 2 days left.
I'm getting news that even hospitals do not have oxygen. I mean, basic, I don't know even, this oxygen can be switched off at any time. If it is not available, then what will I do? I will just see him dying in front of me. It's bad. I saw one message that it is not COVID which is killing people. It is this unavailability of the treatment which is killing people.
This is known as the Oxygen Express, carrying the gas in a 750-mile lifeline to India's capital. The country produces some 7,000 tons of oxygen a day, but its distribution has come calamitously late. The black market for refills is extortionate. Those relatives who can afford it are paying out hundreds of dollars for a single tank, nothing less than the price of a loved one's life. Untold numbers of Indians are dying at home when their personal supply runs out. In Agra, south of Delhi, a man was seen begging for an oxygen cylinder he said was meant for his mother. 2 hours after it was taken from him, she reportedly died. By contrast, there's outrage that a 5-star hotel in the capital has been set aside to keep High Court judges and their families safe.
That is what the Delhi High Court judges are getting, but what is the common man getting? There is just one ICU bed with a ventilator, one ICU bed with a ventilator in the national capital of India for the common man.
In Mumbai, the largest field hospital has 2,300 new beds, and they are all full, though far fewer than half of them have breathing equipment. Yesterday, this vaccination centre in the city ran out of vaccine. 800 million Indians over the age of 18 are supposedly eligible for the jab from Saturday, though not surprisingly, the website to register has frequently crashed.
Yes, this is a situation like this. So, but guess what? When we remember that this coronavirus happened 2019, end of 2019, and we thought this is the story, the house across the river is burning, so we just, okay, as a spectator, oh, something is going on. But soon after the coronavirus hit United States, and we just experienced a mess. And who knows that this Indian crisis will come to America. And even if those who got fully vaccinated, who knows, we are safe enough to fight against these variants, the mutants, or will be another vulnerable target to suffer another coronavirus mutants like this. See, this is the statistics. India used to be, this is last September, a little bit 10,000, 100,000 here. and it goes okay, and finally it's a skyrockets, like a daily confirmed cases 400,000 a day. And according to the White House, they got a restriction from the people from India, but as of May 4th. So this is May 1st, and who knows how many Indians or the travelers would come to the United States, and nobody is going to be very safe. So going back to the talk of the law and the covenant of our God. This is the Bible text. Deuteronomy 28:15. It says, "If you do not obey the law your God and do not carefully follow all his commands and decrees I'm giving you today, all these curses will come upon you and overtake you." In Deuteronomy chapter 28, the first part of the story is talking about the blessings, and the latter part of the chapter it talks about the curses. So why we are collecting those curses? Because this is what he said. If you do not carefully follow his commands and decrees, his law and regulations and covenant, and this is what going to happen. The following verse says, "The Lord will plague you with diseases until he has destroyed you from the land you are entering to possess." And 22, "The Lord will strike you with wasting disease," something like a TB. It is called the consumption, another tuberculosis, wasting disease, the lung disease, "with fever and inflammation and scorching heat and drought and blight and mildew, which will plague you until you perish." Why? Because our disobedient to our God's law. So let me think. So I thought it was a coronavirus that gives us such a suffering. Yes, it's a type of appearance and a symptom, but when you go back to the basic, why we are suffered? Because we disobey our God's law, our God's covenant. We break it. I'm not going to give you some warning, or I'm not going to get you discouraged, but this is a time that we have to restore our faith, and we have to rebuild our faith, because it is not the coronavirus which destroys us. It is our disobedience to God. Malachi 3:7, it says, "Ever since the time of your forefathers you have turned away from my decrees and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you." So this is time that we have to get back to our God, humbly, to meet our God. What did he do in the past? Okay, that's fine, but now it is time to get back to our God, restore our faith, and reason with our God, and humble ourselves before God, and we'll be okay. It is time to get back to our God. And people still say that, but you ask, how are we to return? No, simply return to your God, and there's so many various ways you can rebuild your faith back to your God. So I hopefully you can get this message, because it is time to restore our faith. All kinds of the time of the end, the symptoms, and what has happened to us is because we can summarize that. We can go back to our God. Yes, Sherry?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, we see Satan bringing all these calamities, and now here we see God is bringing the calamities. Who's bringing the calamities?
That's a good question. What I'm understanding is that sometimes God allowed that has happened.
That's
because
I understand that
right.
God allows Satan to go so far.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a tool for us to get back to our God. And even so, all Satan's strategy is to attack God's law and his character.
His character, because we see that here in America, we watch the news and we see an act of God.
Mm-hmm.
In reality,
Mm-hmm.
it's not an act of God. It's Satan bringing these calamities upon us. Is that correct?
Sometimes when you read the Bible, sometimes God punished the enemies, right?
We've seen that.
Yeah, using the natural disasters like this. So I think that both works, but in a sense, God allowed Satan use this power, and Satan devised this power, but the purpose is quite different between God and Satan.
Sure.
Yeah, Satan is to destroy us, and God is to calling us that come back to us. When we are experiencing some bad times and suffering, and it is time that God is using His megaphone to talk to us, and I love you, please come back. Yes, Jerry. Oh, not Jerry. Jerry's.
There's a much simpler explanation of that.
Okay.
It comes with cause
Speak
and
up,
effect.
Jerry. Speak up.
It comes with cause and effect.
Cause and
Simple
effect.
explanation, cause and effect. If you insist on being separate from God's law, He has no way to protect you from all the rest of the things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And as a consequence of being separate from God, this is what happened. It's not a curse that God sends on you. He's trying to protect you. And He says, if you do my law, this is how it's going to end up. You'll be protected from all of this stuff. If you don't, I'll try to get you back. But in the end, it's your decision.
Right.
You decide to separate from God, this is the consequence. It's not that I'm being evil to you or that I am being vindictive toward you. I'm saying that if you're separate from me, this is what will happen. You choose. Your choice. Separate from God, and this is what's going to happen. Now, what's happening now? You want to apply that to right now. Right now,
the United
here
States.
and now. The whole world is separating itself from God.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world has gone into this thing where science is God, not God. Science says God doesn't exist, and we can get through this thing with science. Follow the science. And it was science that created the stupid virus to begin with.
Mm.
And they're not done. They're not done. It got out of control, and it's been released on the earth. It's not the last one. There's been a whole variance of these things, starting with H1N1 all the way through right now, through the result of research and science. Science is what's doing this. Science is the new God that was talked about even in Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
And remember what Romans 1 says, that there is plenty of evidence of God through the nature that He created. And through this, you have no excuse not to know about God. But because you're going to worship the creation and not the Creator, God will turn you over to your evil desires, and that's what He says. That's your choice. If you really want it that way, okay.
Right.
There comes a time, literally, when God gives up.
Mm-hmm.
And so God didn't send these things to us. They're the natural result of what happens when we separate ourselves from God. And as a global society, that's what we're doing.
Yes, thank you. When you said that this story reminds me. Okay, let me see. When we jump off cliff and we are going to die, when you go to a Yosemite and there's a huge valley and we die. So who killed us? Is it God or you or Satan, right? But Satan can influence us to jump off, and the result is death, right? And can God be blamed for that? No, not at all.
Not a cause and effect.
See?
But Satan's attack would be, well, see, God created gravity. If it wasn't for that stupid law of gravity, you could fly. I mean, that's how ridiculous the argument is.
So we'll continue. This is not the end of the series. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, you just raise your hand.
I was going to say, do unto others as you would have them do unto us. That's why we see a lot of shootings, these school shootings. They're walking away from God's plan. God has a plan for us.
Right.
He gives us a law, and we are disobedient to it because we don't know what God is like.
Right.
And then God gets blamed for it, all this disaster.
Let's continuously discuss this next time.
Sure.
But as I told you before, the offering, the basket is at the back. And shall we rise for the closing hymn?